I grew up in Summit, New Jersey. I started playing trumpet in school, and in high school, I commuted from my home in New Jersey to Philadelphia to study with a relatively famous teacher named Doc Reinhardt. And I landed in San Francisco primarily to take some courses in recording engineering. I left for a year on tour with Ray Charles during that time, which was right about the time that they invented the machine to replace me. Somebody on a gig said, if you're looking for a studio scene, Vancouver is very much like San Francisco. And I had to go home and open an atlas to find out where Vancouver was. But while it was open, my eye just kind of stumbled on Toronto and Montreal. Everybody I asked who knew anything said, well, don't go to Montreal unless you're French, but Toronto would be a great place to go. I made the decision, and I just picked up and moved here. We're talking 1970s now. So synthesizers and samplers really came on the scene just about the same time I did. It was hipper to have a synthesizer playing a trumpet part than it was to have a trumpet player playing a trumpet part, because it was the new technology. And people have realized that 4 synthesizers don't sound like a trumpet section, and they start programming it, trying to make it sound like 4 different players and detune it a little bit and trying to breathe humanity into the machine perfection. But a shift came for me about middle of my career, and it all came when a magazine, Canadian Musician, asked me to write an article on brass playing. Wound up, I wrote for that magazine for 10 years. And as a result of those articles, people started asking me for trumpet lessons. So I started teaching a little bit. So I've been a full-time university professor now I'm in my 8th year. It subsidized the playing career. You know, when I didn't have gigs, my kids still wanted to eat, which was annoying, but necessary. And I started to think, well, what if I bound all of this into a book and sold it for $5 so at least I could recoup my photocopying costs? And over the next 10 years or so, I was turning out another book about every 2 years. Well, first of all, if a student comes to me and says, do you think I should go into music? My first answer is always no. You should go into music probably over the objections of everyone. Should you be a musician? Absolutely. The question is then, do you want to subject your art form to the pressures of commerce? So I've made the most money as a professional trumpet player playing on some jingle that runs for years and years and years, and I keep getting paid. I mean, there's a clip on the internet. It's less than 1 second, and it's me doing this. Thousands and thousands of dollars that thing has paid me. And then on where I would use my talents the most would be a jazz gig. I bring everything, every ounce of my creativity and ability on the instrument, and everything in music comes out to that, and you're working for small money, maybe the door. Then another way is to use your musical talents in maybe not necessarily creative ways, but in craftsman-like ways to make a living. And even students in university can make way more money on an hourly basis teaching if your devotion to the art is as strong as it needs to be. It probably supersedes everything else. We all have some point in our life, where the music played an important role. Now, for a professional musician, it's always, right? It never leaves us. It's always there. People who don't know, they're not musicians, they're not familiar with the musical lifestyle, they're surprised when I tell them that I still have to practice the trumpet every day. Their assumption is, well, don't you know how to do it by now? Haven't you figured that out? And yeah, I know how to do it, but it's like being any other kind of athlete. If you don't do it every day, you're going to lose it. You can't keep it. And so that trying to keep the world at bay, to keep growing, hopefully. There was a famous trumpet player who, when they asked him, what do you do to get better? And he said, get better. I'm just trying not to get worse.